Hello and welcome to tonight's session with Creative Jam. My name is Melissa Butler. If you have never been in one of my sessions, and I am a screenwriter and producer. So today we are talking about formatting and some of the typical mistakes that newer screenwriters make when formatting. Now, one of the most important things I want you guys to understand is if you use a screenwriting software, it will take care of a lot of issues for you, but everybody either doesn't have access or doesn't necessarily feel comfortable using a screenwriting software, at least in the beginning. So if you choose to write in a program like Word, I would suggest that you go online and find out what all the margins are for everything and just input that into Word. You can find videos that will take you step by step through the process. But that way, at the very least, you'll set yourself up where you don't have to go back and make too many changes when you're going back to edit. But even when you do, I'm sorry, I'm going to scroll down to the bottom of this. Even when you do make or create your script in a screenwriting software like Final Draft, it's one of the most popular screenwriting softwares, but it is very easy to still make mistakes in screenwriting software. So let's just take this scene right here. Whenever you are working in a program like Final Draft, this doesn't go for all screenwriting softwares, but a lot of them do this. Once you start typing a word, it will generate what you have put in before. So say that I go ahead and I pick this right here. It goes ahead and it tells me that this is spelled incorrectly. So I can go ahead and fix that. Oops. It didn't fix. There we go. So it lets me know that I can do that. But what was not saved in there is the time of day. So that is something that I will have to go in and type myself. And as we're going through our first draft, it is very easy to type things incorrectly. And I do this particular thing a lot. I'll get my spacing wrong. And so you see, we have a period here. So that doesn't belong there. Or what a lot of times I see is that you do too many spaces and then you put the time of day. That'll also auto generate and you can click on that. But as you're scrolling through your script, this is really easy to miss that there's too many spaces here. Final Draft has something called a format assistant, which whenever you get ready to print your script, it will go through and look at formatting and make sure it's correct. And if it sees obvious mistakes like this, it will let you know so you can fix it. It'll tell you what the problem is, and then you can just go manually fix it. But all screenwriting software does not have that. So when you get ready to send your script to someone, it is really important that before you do that, you print it off and you look at it, because these mistakes are really hard to see on a computer. They're a lot easier to see when you're actually looking at paper for most people. So again, this is a very common mistake because it's really easy to hit your space bar 2 or 3 extra times. Another thing that is very helpful that I see. Oops. Let's go down further and type this in so we can see it. So say we want to start a new scene. Whenever we hit enter, because we were just writing an action scene, it is going to automatically assume that this is an action scene. It's not until you type INT and put the period behind it that it switches to a scene heading. But let's just say we didn't do that. Let's say we typed INT, but we forgot to put our period here. And then we just kept, typing and didn't really notice that we didn't put this in a scene heading. Or maybe your caps lock is on and all of this does all of this does capitalize because we have our caps lock on for whatever reason. This, even though it's capitalized, is still an action scene. So it is that dot, that period that turns it into a scene. But because we have this text right here after it, it's still going to show as a action scene. What you have to do is go up to your elements in Final Draft. In other programs, there are places where you can go and change it to a scene heading. But remember, your spacing between all of your elements is different. So you have to manually, because you inputted this incorrectly, you have to manually go up here and change it to a scene heading in order for your spacing to be correct. So if you just look at your spacing for action lines versus a scene heading, there's only one space here. And then there's probably 2 spaces in between action line and a scene heading. So that is why it is really important to make sure that you're typing in your different elements properly. Recently, a lot of changes have, well, not a lot, but several changes have been made in screenwriting formatting. And it's all just tiny things. So if you're using an older software, for years I had been using Final Draft 9 or 10. And when Final Draft 9 or 10 were made, they're currently on 12 now, which I now have. This was put over here. So an intercut is saying that this scene where I have interior car date, and then the scene that I'm going to write after it, that means we're going to go back and forth between these two things, what's happening in the car and what's happening in the kitchen. But that has been changed. So this is now, this intercut is now looked at as a transition. So all the transitions go here on the right-hand side versus the left-hand side. If you put it on the right-hand side, it's not going to hurt you a lot. But you want to try and put it on the left-hand side because it is, something that people did used to at one point put on the left-hand side. So it's not going to make a huge difference. But Any and everything that you can do to make your script look the best that it can when you're sending it to get feedback is just going to help you. Another key thing that I want to point out, we're going to minimize this for a second, and we're going to look at this script here. So this is a script that I wrote several years ago. It is, the reason that we have formatting is because we can only take in so much input when we're reading at a time. Even when you're reading novels, that's why things are broken up into sections and scenes and chapters, because when there's just blocks of text, it's easy not to get all the context, or it's really easy to not really ingest everything that's on the page. So for screenplays, they're formatted in such a way where it's easy to read. So you have this information over here that tells us that we're fading in. You have the location, then you have some description, and then people start talking. When you start to get to these blocks of text, like you see here, the consensus is that you don't want to have over 5 lines of blocks of text. So you see here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, technically 8 lines of text. Because it stops at 8, it's not too bad. But if this goes on to 9, 10, 11, 12, what you would want to do is start to break it up so it's easier for somebody to read. One of the things that's the most important when you are writing your script is something called white space. The more white space there is on the page, the easier it is for someone to read, whether it's on a computer screen or if they printed it out and they're reading it. And this is just because it's easier for our brains to digest and take in the information. You can see that there's a lot of white space here. Even though there's a lot of dialogue, even though a lot is going on in these things, there's a lot of white space. So you want to make sure that you have as much white space as possible. One of the things that you can do to make sure you create a lot of white space is be very clear and concise with your action scenes. Now, when it comes to dialogue, you can't always be as clear and concise because your dialogue should be based on what and who your characters are. So if you have a character that just prattles on, then you may have a block of text every now and then. But your action lines are really where you're going to come to get that white space. Now, if you look at this script here on the right, Runaway, versus this script that I am currently writing, Disorder, you'll see that comparatively, this has much less white space. This action line has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We didn't go over the 5 mark, but that's a big block of text, even though it's just one scene. And then we have these action lines right here that it just seems really bulky and it could be harder to read because of this. So what I would want to do when I go back through my editing phase is just try to be as concise and direct to the point as possible. Now, there are some times when you can't get any more concise, and if you break up sentences and be more direct and to the point, it changes the flow of what you're writing. So you always have to keep in mind you want a lot of white space, but in addition to that, you have to know when you can't do that. If there is a really complex thing that you're trying to describe and it needs, 10, 20 lines of description, then that's what it needs. Now, that would just mean that you would break that up. You would do 5, and then you would break that up and then do your other 5 sentences. So anything to break it up, but also you want to make sure whenever you can, you want to be as clear and concise as possible. So this particular thing right here, this is one of the last scenes in this particular episode that I'm writing, and there's a lot going on. There's no dialogue in this scene, but there are some key things that I really needed to convey. So it's a little bit longer than up here, where there's only 2 lines to describe what's going on in this scene. So again, it's up to you how you get your white space, basically, but you want to make sure you have as much of it as possible. So with that said, it is really important for you as a writer to kind of figure out, how you describe stuff, because there are many different ways to do that. When I am writing a script, a lot of times I don't use the word "the." So when I go back in my rewrite phase, if we just take this action line right here, an unseen person pushes, this should be a cart to the end of the motel. So I would probably just say an unseen person pushes a cart. Sets trays in front of each room as the sun sets, period. Then re-enters the motel. So I just took off, by changing a little bit. I got rid of a line. So when you're first writing, you just want the words to get on the paper. You don't want to spend too much time looking at formatting or how you can create white space or things like that. What you really want to focus on is getting the words out. And then when you go back, you want to see how you can create more white space. You want to go back and make sure that your scene headings are put together properly. So, and that there's the proper spacing everywhere. As for this right here, I technically could split this into 2 scenes because it says day night, and that is because when this person goes outside and is pushing the cart, it's daytime. But as they're setting the trays down, the sun sets, so it goes from day to night. So anytime you have anything like going from day to night, you're looking at voiceovers, you want to pay extra close attention to those things to make sure that they are formatted correctly, because it's very easy to just do something incorrect. Now, for this right here, this could also just be VO. I just prefer putting the periods at the end of it. So formatting is something that can be fixed or done properly in the beginning, or checked depending on what screenwriting software you have. But it is very easy, no matter what screenwriting software that you're using, just to put something, to categorize something as the wrong element. Especially when you're first learning how to write. Now, this particular project disorder, I know we've talked about it before in previous sessions, but this is actually a series. This is not written, because it's my first draft, it is not properly formatted as a series. And I will show you why as soon as we get to the first page of this episode, which is here on 22. So in episodic writing, a bit different than whenever you're writing a screenplay. And I know the word screenplay is used interchangeably, but a screenplay is for feature films and short films. A teleplay is for TV, not TV movies, just episodic, limited series or longer series. So you'll see right here down at the bottom, it says new act, end of act. So that is how this should be formatted. And your acts will serve when you have commercial breaks. So unless you know that, I'm going to write this and I'm going to try to pitch it to somewhere like Netflix or a place that doesn't have commercials, which there are very few now. Even Netflix is starting to get commercials. So you probably won't write everything with ad breaks. So this is where this is going to be my teaser. Not all scripts have, not all TV shows have teasers or cold open, as it would be. And then when I'm done with my teaser, I would go down here and click end of act, and it's just say end of act 1. And then when you hit enter, you're automatically going to be given the option for a new act. And then this is just going to be act 2. So if you do a teaser and a tag, then you're going to have essentially 7 acts. If you just do a teaser and your regular acts, you're going to have 6. If you don't do a teaser, you're typically going to have 5 acts. And that is mostly due to commercials, but there are other reasons why you have 5 acts in a teleplay versus the 3 that's in a screenplay. So I just wanted to show you guys that, because I know that there are a lot of people who are actually writing episodic versus feature films, just because we have really big stories that can't be told necessarily in a 2-hour movie. This is the second episode. Oops. This is the second episode And my first episode was 21 pages. This episode, I think, is 22 or 23 pages. And so we're already at 45, 46 pages. If this was a feature, we would be almost halfway through with it. But I have this particular project outlined for at least 5 episodes. There may be a 6, just depending on how I wrap the ending up. But it is really helpful to write your first draft of your teleplay all in one script, because it just makes it a little bit easier to go back and check what you've done in a previous episode. And then you can still also, put your act breaks in here and keep it all still in one document. But if you're ever going to send it to someone, you will need to break it up. And most people are only really going to see your pilot, even if that. But I just wanted to make sure you guys saw how you format a teleplay. And this is really the only difference between formatting a teleplay and a feature film, is your act breaks. Now, this right here, because I named my episodes, I can go to the document. I don't know if you can do this in other screenwriting softwares or not, but you can go up here and document on final draft and click on header and footer, and then type in, any information that you want. So page number is already in there. You can add your file name. You can put the date in there, the scene in there. You can label it something specific. You can say active revision. It already had collated revisions because I've been making revisions on this for a few months now. I've been working on this, and so it has revisions over months. So you can really customize what your document looks like. For me, I don't need active revision or label. Scene number might be helpful. I don't need the date. Let me go back. I don't need the date, but the file name would be helpful. Because you can, change. If you were writing each episode separately, it would be good to have episode 2 in the name of the episode there. But because I'm writing them all in one document, it's just going to say disorder. But, as you're doing your revisions, if you copy your file and you start a new document, you duplicate it and you do your revisions in another document, that's where your file name could be very helpful. Here in your header, because now maybe this is revision 10, so the name of this would be disorder revision 10. Or I could put, episode 2, treatment 2, day 2, in my I could put that in my header. So that's a thing to keep in mind. One other thing that I want to point out up here, um, scene numbers. It's really not important in the beginning stages unless you are like me, and my scene numbers just help me, one, kind of figure out where I am in the story when I'm going back and forth. Because if you're writing something that's complicated, to know that in scene 28, this is the first time we see the cameras in everybody's room. That's an important thing that I may want to know and make a note of. So if there's another scene that mirrors this, or another scene that calls back to this in any way, I can just go to scene 28 and it's a little bit easier to help me find it. So let's do this again. In Final Draft, you go up to production, you click on scene numbers, and then you want to make sure that only your scene heading is checked. You don't want anything else checked. There are some reasons why you would want to number some of these other things, but for our purposes, we just need our scene headings numbered, and you want to make sure number renumber is checked, and you're going to click OK. So if I was to add a scene right here, I could go back up here and go scene number, and as long as number renumber is checked, this is going to incorporate this new scene I added into the count. Now, this says 28A instead of 29, and I'll show you why it says that. So down here it says numbering scheme 1A1, 1A2, 3. So because I added this scene, it just added an A to it, and it didn't change it to 29. So we want to make sure we uncheck the keep existing numbers and then click OK. And this is going to ask me if I really want to renumber everything and write over it. And I want to, so it's yes. So now it changed this to 29. This is 30 and this is 31, because somewhere here, right here, I accidentally had a scene heading there. So this is why, going back and checking your formatting is so important, because I didn't know that this space here was labeled as a scene heading. And so putting scene numbers in and changing scene numbers, that is another way that you can find things that are incorrect in your formatting. So I'm going to go back up here to scene numbers. I'm going to uncheck keep existing numbers, and I'm going to click OK. It's going to ask me if I want to rewrite again. I'm going to hit yes, and then that fixes. This is 28. Now this is 29. And so again, if I was to get rid of this, so if you just delete it, I want to make sure you guys saw that. It turns this action into and gives it this scene number when it shouldn't have that. So what I want to do is just go over to production again, click on your scene numbers. But this time I want to go where it says action and click on remove numbers. It's going to ask me if I actually want to do that. I'm going to click yes, and it removes that. So now I then need to go back again, click on scene numbers, and tell it to renumber them. Uncheck keep existing numbers. It's going to ask me if I want to do it. I click yes, and now this is fixed. So if you're ever sending something to anybody, it can be helpful for you to send it to them with scene numbers. Some people like it, some people don't. Again, for me, it helps me keep track of things, especially like if I'm reading something and I stop for a second and I want to come back to it, I can make a note that I stopped at scene 29 on page 22. Otherwise, oh, so I do want to show you guys this. So right here, it says disorder 29. So that is referring to, on this page, we ended on scene 29. On the page before, we ended on scene 32. So this can be helpful as you're going through and you're reading and you're making sure that all your things line up. So right here, this is a continuation on page 24. It's a continuation of scene 32. But scene 32 does not start on this page. So especially if you have something as long and complex as this particular project is, it is very helpful to know that, okay, we're still in scene 32. Yes, scene 32 is a page, a little bit more than a page, because it starts at the end of the page and it finishes on the top of another page. So when you have really long drawn out scenes, it can be very helpful to have your scene number here, just to kind of, again, know where you are in your script, and make sure your formatting is right. I have plenty of times during my first, sometimes even second and third draft, just got lost or didn't notice that something was wrong. And scene numbers are a really great way to help you, spot changes. The more you do this, the easier it's going to be to spot changes. Like I said before, for me, trying to fix things just by looking at on the computer is really difficult. Not a lot of people can, take this blue light for that many hours. They need paper to look at. So but when I'm going through it on paper, I can automatically see when things are wrong because I've been doing it for so long. And the more you do it, the easier it be to spot these issues up front. So let's go back over and talk about Runaway with our last couple of minutes here. Let's see here. So this is just a sample of Runaway. Okay, this is what I wanted to show you guys. So this right here, this dialogue that Sherry has, it starts on page 9, it ends on page 10. So your screenwriting software should automatically put more here, letting you know that there's more on the next page. And then in parentheses here, it should say continued. This is the abbreviation for continued. If for some reason you don't get the continued, it's going to be because there's a space between here somewhere. And I'll show you another reason you would get continued. So over here in disorder, continued just means that the character was talking, things happened, have this action go by, but this character, the same character, is still talking. So you'll see in this scene right here, scene 30, Dr. Rutherford talks, then Dr. Tooks talks, then we have this action, no one speaks, but then Dr. Tooks speaks again. So like, this just means you get this continued again, and again, it just means that the character who last spoke is continuing to speak, which is very important for actors. But if for some reason, because there's a lot of reasons, software can mess up, you could have a virus, anything could be going on. So if for whatever reason you don't have this continued, or you accidentally delete it, this won't always come back. Sometimes if you delete it, it's not going to come back. So you want to make sure that if, as you're going through your script, that if one character speaks and action goes on, and then they are the next character to speak, that you still have this continued, because all screenwriting softwares do not auto-populate this. So you want to make sure that you're putting it in yourself. I think that's it, guys. One of the most important things to do, just to make sure that you don't have formatting errors in your script or formatting issues, is to read other scripts. Go on Google, go on Bing, and just search free scripts. You will get links to lots of sites that post scripts from all sorts of major motion pictures. If you subscribe to the Hollywood Reporter, they have a free subscription. Deadline has a free subscription where you can sign up, and every year during award season, which we are currently in, they will upload the scripts of a lot of the films that have been nominated. They will definitely have the scripts of those that have been nominated for best screenplay, and just download those and look at them and read them. And as you're looking at them and you're reading them, you will see where your script doesn't line up. And when I say that, I'm not talking about skill level or anything like that. I'm strictly talking about formatting. You will quickly see that maybe, you know, you don't always have the continues, that maybe your parentheticals don't have parentheses around them. Maybe all of your scenes don't indicate if it's day or night. Maybe your I'm scrolling down to try to get to it. Maybe your transitions are in the wrong spot. So like intercut is a transition. Maybe it's in the wrong spot. Like up here on this script, we start with a transition, fade in. Transition should always be on the right. So it is really easy once you start comparing your work in the sense of formatting and structure. you'll begin to quickly see, where yours differ when you compare by reading scripts nominated for Emmys, scripts nominated for films. Read it all, take it all in, and it's going to help you format your scripts better. And when your scripts are formatted better, they're easier to read. They're easier for you to see where you may have made some mistakes that you can fix. And it's easier for anybody you present it to really understand and digest your story. So, guys, with that said, we're going to be ending tonight's session. If you have any questions for me, make sure that you're in next week's class, which is going to be about how to develop an outline. We've talked about a lot of topics. We've talked about outlining and formatting and, the anatomy of a scene. But before you do all of that outlining and developing your project, whether it's a feature or a series, is really important. It helps you in your process of writing and putting everything on the page. So that's what we're going to be talking about next week. So make sure you're here, and you can ask me questions live. Otherwise, you can email your questions to me at mailbwritesonline. That's MLB Writes, WRITES, online at gmail.com. And I'll be happy to answer as many questions as I can. If I get a lot of questions, just give me some time to get back to you guys. And I look forward to seeing you guys next Thursday. And till then, keep writing and have a great time.